You know civilization is doomed when people honestly believe a live parrot stuffed in their pants is a subtle travel accessory. Smuggling used to sound like high-stakes espionage, secret compartments, coded signals, maybe a speedboat chase. Now it's just some guy sweating bullets in the customs line because his emotional support iguana won't stop thrashing under his hoodie. Airports aren't crime scenes anymore. They're comedy clubs where the punchlines are written in police reports. And if you think that's the dumbest thing anyone's ever tried to sneak past security, buckle up, because the real stupidity hasn't even taken off yet. 1. A man once tried to smuggle live pigeons under his pants. Yes, pigeons. Not diamonds, not gold bars, birds that you can literally find loitering in Times Square for free. He had them tucked in little custom-made pant legs like feathery cargo socks, and he actually thought nobody would notice when his trousers started twitching like a haunted marionette. Imagine the confidence it takes to think you'll just casually walk past customs while looking like you've got avian Parkinson's in your pants. The birds, of course, started cooing mid-inspection, and the guy got busted. TSA didn't even need a scanner for that one, just working ears. Honestly, if you're going to risk prison time, at least upgrade to parrots. At least then, when you're caught, they can testify against you. 2. Someone once tried to smuggle cocaine inside a jar of peanut butter, which, on the surface, sounds clever, except for the part where airport security has x-rays, scanners, and, oh yeah, dogs that can smell narcotics through walls. The jar looked like it had been filled by a drunk toddler, with giant chunks of white powder floating inside like marshmallows in Lucky Charms. Officials pulled him aside, opened the jar, and boom, instant felony sandwich. I just love the thought process here. No one will ever suspect my oddly chunky Skippy that smells faintly of Medellin. The best part? He taped the lid shut with Scotch tape, like TSA wouldn't notice the world's saddest arts and crafts project. Pro tip: if your peanut butter looks like it was made in a cartel chemistry lab, you're not fooling anyone. 3. A man once attempted to smuggle snakes onto a plane by literally shoving them in his socks. I wish I were making this up. He had live snakes wriggling against his ankles and decided he was going to do snakes on a plane, the dollar store edition. Security caught him when they noticed his socks bulging like he had calves made out of spaghetti trying to escape. And imagine being the poor TSA agent who has to go in for the pat-down and suddenly feels something slithering under your jeans. Forget terrorism. This is how you make airport security workers quit en masse. Look, I get it. Reptiles are exotic. But if your plan for international travel involves looking like your legs are possessed by Satan's shoelaces, maybe just buy a tank and ship them legally. 4. One genius thought it would be undetectable to smuggle drugs inside hollowed-out cheese wheels, because nothing says I'm totally innocent like lugging around 40 pounds of cheddar on an international flight. First of all, nobody needs that much cheese unless you're running a Wisconsin cult. Second, drug dogs don't care if you surround it with dairy. They'll happily ruin your $200 brie to bust your side hustle. And when customs sliced the wheel open, they found cocaine packed inside like a stuffed crust pizza from hell. It's almost poetic. Cheese may bind you up, but this batch was designed to keep you wired. At the end of the day, the only thing more suspicious than a cheese wheel in your luggage is you insisting it's for personal use. 5. A couple in Australia tried to smuggle McMuffins into the country. Not drugs, not weapons, egg McMuffins. Apparently, they decided international food smuggling was worth risking thousands in fines just to sneak in some sad, lukewarm fast food. Here's the kicker. Australia has insane quarantine laws. They treat a rogue slice of cheese like it's a bioweapon. Customs found the sandwiches, hit them with a fine over $2,000, and tossed the contraband straight in the trash. That means someone essentially paid the price of a used car for the privilege of watching their airport breakfast get binned. Imagine telling your grandkids you couldn't afford college because you couldn't let go of a McMuffin. 6. In one of the dumbest bird-related stunts ever, a woman tried smuggling 24 parrots by strapping them to her legs under a giant skirt. That's not smuggling. That's cosplay for the world's worst Disney villain. Customs officers became suspicious when her flowy dress started chirping like a rainforest. She actually tried to act shocked, like, "What? You've never heard fabric sing before?" Look, the TSA might be slow at finding a water bottle in your bag, but when you've turned yourself into a walking aviary, the jig is up. The parrot survived, but her dignity did not. 7. A man once hollowed out fake grenades to smuggle drugs inside. Read that again. Fake grenades. Because nothing says, "Don't search me," like walking into an airport with items that look exactly like explosives. Security shut down the entire terminal, evacuated passengers, called in the bomb squad, and treated it like a terrorist attack. All because this guy thought hiding coke inside toy weaponry was subtle. It's the smuggling equivalent of showing up to prom in camouflage paint and wondering why no one believes you're just there to dance. 8. Somebody tried smuggling exotic fish by strapping plastic bags full of water to their torso under their shirt, because nothing suspicious about a guy sloshing like a human aquarium through airport security. TSA agents only caught him because they noticed liquid literally dripping down his pants. Imagine being so committed to contraband guppies that you risk looking like you've had the world's longest bathroom accident. The saddest part? Half the fish didn't even survive the trip. Congratulations, you didn't just commit a crime, you invented sushi in a fanny pack. 9. A man once stuffed live turtles inside burger boxes to get through security. That's right, he opened up a McDonald's wrapper, plopped a turtle in and thought, "This is airtight." Customs unwrapped it, probably expecting cold fries, and instead got a reptile blinking at them like, "Can I get some ketchup with this?" It's such a bold move because he could have bought literally any container designed to hold animals. Instead, he went with Happy Meal meets National Geographic. This wasn't a smuggling plan, it was a rejected Pokemon pitch. 10. Someone once tried to smuggle an entire tiger cub in their luggage. A tiger, like the apex predator, orange with stripes, big teeth, jungle boss tiger. Airport staff noticed because her suitcase was purring. The cub was sedated, but still made noise, and x-rays showed what looked like a stuffed animal. Except stuffed animals don't breathe. Customs pulled it out, and the woman was arrested. My favorite part is her defense. She said it was a gift. Oh, sure. Nothing says, "Happy birthday," like, "Here's a future man-eater. Don't forget to walk it twice a day." 11. In a case that proves desperation and stupidity are best friends, a man tried to smuggle a giant stash of iPhones by taping them all over his body. He looked like Iron Man if Iron Man's superpower was losing $10,000 to customs. Security noticed because he was walking like a malfunctioning robot, barely able to bend his knees. News photos showed him shirtless, covered in iPhones, like he just won America's saddest tech lottery. Honestly, the only person impressed by this would be a Radio Shack manager in 2008. 12. A woman once tried to smuggle cocaine inside her breast implants. Yes, she literally went under the knife to turn her body into a cartel shipping container. Customs officers got suspicious when her implants started leaking white powder, which is the exact opposite of what cosmetic surgery is supposed to do. Doctors had to remove them on the spot, turning an already bad plan into a medical horror show. Look, if your boob job starts behaving like a snow globe in July, maybe rethink your life choices. 13. A man was caught with 200 tarantulas in his suitcase. Not dead, not fake, alive. Each one carefully packed in little containers, because apparently nothing screams innocent vacationer like a rolling Samsonite full of spiders. TSA discovered it during a routine check, and I just imagine the agent opening the case, seeing hundreds of hairy legs, and immediately deciding they don't get paid enough for this. Forget fines. This man should be sentenced to personally apologize to everyone in line who had to wait while TSA burned his luggage in self-defense. 14. In Spain, someone tried to smuggle hashish by shaping it into fake butt implants. This man literally walked through customs looking like he'd borrowed a Kardashian starter kit from Spirit Halloween. Security noticed because the implants were lumpy and hard, like two bricks fighting for dominance under his jeans. When they cut him open, bam, pure smuggling innovation. Imagine explaining to your cellmate you're in prison because your butt was a storage locker. Somewhere, Pablo Escobar is looking down like, "Why didn't I think of that?" 15. A man once thought he'd outsmart customs by smuggling rare iguanas in his prosthetic leg. Yes, his actual prosthetic limb was hollowed out and filled with reptiles. Security caught him when they noticed his leg was literally moving. Imagine trying to play it cool while your leg is wriggling like a possessed mannequin. They opened it up and boom, 3 live iguanas. Honestly, if you're going to use a prosthetic for crime, at least be creative. Put snacks in there or maybe a flask. Reptiles? That's just asking to trend on Florida Man Twitter. 16. A traveler once stuffed cocaine inside a wig, as if customs officers are unfamiliar with hair pieces that look like cotton candy exploded on your head. The wig sat a good 3 inches taller than her skull, giving her the silhouette of Marge Simpson. TSA pulled her aside because, shocking revelation, people don't normally travel wearing a crash helmet made of human hair. They searched, found the stash, and arrested her on the spot. The moral of the story? If your smuggling disguise makes you look like an extra from a drag show about gravity-defying hair, you're not exactly blending in. 17. A man tried to smuggle 35 finches from Guyana by hiding them inside hair curlers. Yes, tiny birds stuffed into plastic curlers taped to his legs, each one chirping in muffled horror as he shuffled through JFK Airport like a man carrying 35 secrets and a lot of guilt. Officials caught him because, surprise, birds don't shut up. The curlers started vibrating, chirping noises escaped, and the plan collapsed faster than a Jenga tower at a toddler's birthday party. Honestly, I respect the commitment to theme, birds and curlers like they were getting ready for a big night out. But in terms of smuggling strategy, it's right up there with hide drugs inside a cop's lunchbox. 18. A man once tried to smuggle live monkeys by shoving them under his hat. Yes, monkeys, plural, stuffed into a beanie like it was a clown car for primates. Security noticed when his hat started shaking like it was possessed by caffeine demons. They pulled it off, and out popped tiny monkeys blinking in horror like they'd just been teleported from a rainforest to JFK. I'd love to know the logic. Nobody will suspect me if I look like a Victorian chimney sweep with a pulse under my head. Honestly, if you're smuggling animals and your plan makes TSA agents feel like they're auditioning for Jumanji, it's time to rethink your life choices. 19. A traveler thought it was subtle to smuggle cocaine inside fake breasts glued onto his chest. Security spotted him because the implants looked less like curves and more like 2 oddly square bricks fighting for dominance. When asked, he claimed he'd recently had surgery, which, yeah, believable, if the surgery was performed by a 3rd grader with a hot glue gun. Customs cut them open and found cocaine spilling out like powdered sugar from a stale donut. Nothing screams innocent passenger like sweating bullets in line while your fake torso drips contraband. 20. Someone once thought they could sneak drugs past customs by hiding them inside hollowed-out candles. Yes, candles. Because who doesn't pack a suitcase full of 50 identical white pillars like they're opening a church in Terminal 3? Officers noticed because the wax looked off. And when they cracked them open, out poured powder that definitely wasn't designed for aromatherapy. Honestly, I respect the optimism. Sure, my luggage looks like Yankee Candle had a nervous breakdown, but nobody will suspect a thing. You'd think the smell of cocaine instead of lavender might have tipped someone off sooner. 21. A man once stuffed exotic birds into plastic tubes and shoved them into his socks. He then casually walked into customs, sounding like a squeaky dog toy with every step. Security caught him when his calves started chirping like a broken ringtone, and he tried to play it off. Oh, that! Just new insoles. Right, insoles that flap their wings. Honestly, if your idea of stealth is turning yourself into a human kazoo, you're not a smuggler. You're performance art. 22. A woman tried to sneak powdered drugs across the border by pouring them into baby formula containers, which would have been clever, except she forgot that airports screen baby food like it's plutonium. Security cracked it open, saw it was lumpy, and realized her formula was about as nutritious as drywall. She claimed it was special milk. Special, yes. Milk, not so much. Honestly, the only babies this formula was feeding were cartel accountants. 23. A smuggler once hollowed out a surfboard to pack it with weed. He showed up at the airport carrying a single board like he was starring in a beach movie, despite the fact he was flying to, wait for it, landlocked Switzerland. Officers didn't even need a scanner. They just laughed at the absurdity. When they drilled it, the board basically sneezed marijuana. It was the only surfboard in history designed not to ride waves, but to ride felony charges. 24. A man tried to smuggle gold bars by painting them silver and labeling them metal scraps, which worked great until customs picked one up and realized this scrap weighed about as much as a car engine. They scraped the paint and revealed solid gold, like he'd just invented reverse alchemy. I love the thought process. Yes, officer, I always carry a suitcase full of silver rectangles heavier than my dignity. He didn't even bother denting them. It was less smuggling and more a treasure chest with bad cosplay. 25. Someone once hollowed out frozen fish and stuffed them with narcotics. He packed a cooler, rolled up like a weekend fisherman, and thought he was untouchable. Customs thawed them and discovered that instead of flaky salmon, the catch of the day was enough powder to knock out a city block. The guy claimed he bought them that way, which is true if your local fishmonger is Walter White. Honestly, it's the only fishing trip where the one that got away was a felony. 26. A smuggler once shoved endangered lizards into socks, rolled them up, and tucked them into his luggage. Customs found them because the socks were wriggling like they were possessed. Imagine being that officer. You unzip a bag expecting dirty laundry and instead get 20 pairs of screaming reptiles. The man insisted they were just pets. Right, because everyone travels internationally with a suitcase full of Jurassic Park tube socks. 27. A woman was caught trying to smuggle cocaine inside a loaf of bread. She carved it out, stuffed it full, and glued the crust back on like she'd invented gluten taxidermy. Officers sliced it open, and the loaf literally bled white powder like it was auditioning for a baking horror movie. She claimed it was special bread. Sure, special enough to get you 15 years of carb-free dining in prison. 28. A man in Brazil hollowed out coconuts and stuffed them with drugs, then glued the shells shut. He packed them into a bag and hoped no one noticed the glue drips and mismatched seams. Customs busted him immediately, proving once again that if your plan looks like it was designed by a kindergarten arts and crafts class, maybe rethink it. Honestly, the only people fooled were probably squirrels. 29. A traveler once tried to smuggle a live chameleon by hiding it in his underwear. Customs caught him because, shockingly, reptiles are bad at staying still when pressed against human thighs. The officer looked down and saw something crawling out of his waistband like it was trying to escape a hostage situation. His excuse? It's just a pet. Yeah, buddy, and I'm sure TSA loves it when your boxers double as a terrarium. 30. Someone once packed cocaine inside a jar of Nutella. Security X-rayed it, popped the lid, and found a jar of hazelnut spread mixed with narcotics, like Willy Wonka had joined the cartel. The guy claimed it was homemade, which explains why it looked less like Nutella and more like a crime scene in a blender. Honestly, if you're mixing drugs with chocolate, at least have the decency to patent it as a new energy spread. 31. A smuggler tried to bring live tarantulas in DVD cases. Customs opened a box of movies, and instead of Finding Nemo, they found 8-legged nightmares crawling out of Spider-Man 2. The excuse? They're just souvenirs. Yeah, because everyone comes home from vacation with arachnid Blu-rays. Somewhere in the middle of that search, a TSA agent probably updated their resume. 32. A man once taped bags of drugs to his stomach and then wore a t-shirt 2 sizes too small. Security didn't even need scanners. They just looked at him and thought, "Sir, your abs are moving." He claimed it was a medical condition, which is true if medical condition now means addicted to felonies. Honestly, at least corset smuggling shows some creativity. This was just dad bod cosplay with accessories. 33. A woman thought she could smuggle cocaine by sewing it into her wig. Customs flagged her because her hair looked like it was defying both gravity and fashion. The wig sat so high it looked like a beehive auditioning for a drag show. Officers pulled it off, cut inside, and found her powder stash sitting like a crown jewel of stupidity. Honestly, if your hairstyle makes TSA agents laugh before they arrest you, you're not a smuggler. You're just set dressing. 34. A man tried smuggling live snakes inside Pringles cans. Yes, he opened them, shoved in snakes, and resealed them like the world's worst flavor edition, sour cream and viper. Customs caught him because the cans were rattling. Imagine being the agent who grabs one, shakes it, and realizes it's about to bite back. The man swore they were souvenirs, which I guess is technically true, if you're vacationing in hell. 35. A man in Germany once tried to smuggle 1,000 live ants through customs by disguising them as research specimens in plastic containers. Research into what, exactly? The biomechanics of prison sentences? Security opened the box, and the ants came crawling out like they were auditioning for a horror movie. Imagine being the officer who signed up for luggage duty and suddenly had to deal with a biblical plague pouring across the desk. The guy insisted they were harmless pets, which is exactly what every villain says 5 minutes before the ants eat someone alive. At least Snakes in the Socks guy had a theme. This was just, "Honey, I shrunk the ark." 36. A woman was busted trying to smuggle a full set of medieval swords in her checked luggage. Not replicas, rusty, sharp, actual weapons that looked like she raided a museum gift shop during the apocalypse. Customs pulled her aside and asked what they were for, and she said, "Decorative." Sure, because nothing says casual home decor like a rusty longsword poking out of your Samsonite. This wasn't smuggling. It was Dungeons & Dragons cosplay gone feral. Honestly, if TSA didn't stop her, the flight attendants probably would have when she asked where to store her claymore in the overhead bin. 37. A guy in Florida, where else, tried to smuggle meth inside a hollowed-out Bible. Yes, he picked the one book famously obsessed with honesty and used it as a trapdoor for narcotics. Officers opened it up, and instead of psalms, they found enough crystal to launch a church band into orbit. The best part? He actually underlined verses about forgiveness, as if God was going to vouch for him at the checkpoint. I'm not sure if this counts as a drug bust or just the world's worst Sunday school lesson, but either way, he's definitely going to be reading a different book in prison. 38. A smuggler in China thought it would be foolproof to strap live eels to his body under his clothes. Let that visual marinate for a second. A man, walking through customs, looking like he was having a full-body seizure because his outfit was secretly 30% seafood. Officers noticed his suspicious movements, which is a polite way of saying he was dancing like a malfunctioning washing machine. When they pulled him aside, they found bags of wriggling eels taped to his chest, back, and legs. Honestly, at that point, just book a one-way ticket to SeaWorld. 39. One woman was caught smuggling a stolen Rolex by swallowing it whole. Yes, she decided the best hiding place was her own digestive system. Security grew suspicious because she looked like she was auditioning for an exorcism film while choking down a luxury watch. Doctors had to surgically remove it, meaning her master plan ended with both a felony charge and a hospital bill. I'd love to see her defense. "No, officer, I wasn't smuggling. I was just really hungry for punctuality." 40. A man tried to sneak endangered turtles through an airport by literally duct taping them to his chest under his shirt. Apparently, the lesson of "don't smuggle reptiles in your pants" wasn't strong enough, so this guy leveled up to turtle armor. The plan fell apart when customs noticed his torso was lumpy and moving, like he was cosplaying Quasimodo in real life. They ripped off the tape, and there they were, dozens of angry turtles stuck like stickers on his sweaty body. Honestly, Michelangelo and the Ninja Turtles deserve a restraining order against this man. 41. Somebody thought it would be subtle to smuggle cocaine by baking it into pastries. Not a hidden compartment, literally mixed into croissants. Officers flagged it because the pastries looked suspiciously heavy, which is a polite way of saying they were denser than an IKEA desk. When tested, each roll contained enough cocaine to fuel a music festival, and the guy insisted they were for a birthday party. Imagine being the guest of honor and blowing out candles only to realize the cake is trying to send you to another dimension. 42. A man was caught trying to smuggle drugs inside hollowed-out coconuts. He packed them like Russian nesting dolls, layers of fruit over powder, then sealed them with glue. Security x-rayed the bag, saw the perfect spheres, and thought, yeah, coconuts definitely don't grow in perfect geometric patterns like cue balls. When confronted, he swore he was just carrying snacks. Right, because everyone brings an entire sack of coconuts through customs instead of buying a candy bar at the gate. 43. One traveler actually tried to smuggle live pigeons by taping them inside padded envelopes strapped to his legs, as if airport scanners can't detect birds kicking like angry toddlers. Customs pulled him aside because, shockingly, his pants were rustling like a trash bag full of groceries. When the envelopes were opened, out popped pigeons, blinking like they'd just been mailed first class. Honestly, we've come full circle. People are basically turning themselves into walking pet stores and hoping nobody notices. 44. A man was busted for smuggling rare orchids inside fake soda cans. He hollowed them out, stuffed the plants inside, and sealed them like the world's least refreshing Sprite. TSA flagged it when they noticed all the cans weighed differently, because, surprise, Dr. Pepper doesn't usually come with dirt. The plants were confiscated, and the guy was fined thousands. Honestly, it's poetic justice. Trying to turn nature into fast food packaging is exactly how humans end up on lists of dumbest species alive. 45. A traveler thought he could smuggle a baby leopard cub in his carry-on. Customs spotted it during X-ray scans because, fun fact, baby leopards don't look like laptops. Security opened the bag, And there it was, a drowsy predator curled up like a house cat that just happened to have fangs. His excuse? It was a gift. Because nothing says "I love you" like handing someone an apex predator in a duffel bag. Hallmark should really get on that card line. 46. A man once tried to smuggle himself inside a suitcase. Yes, he literally zipped himself into luggage and had a friend wheel him through security. The TSA noticed when the bag moved like it was having a seizure on wheels. They opened it, and surprise, a sweaty, cramped man popped out like the saddest jack-in-the-box. I can't decide what's dumber, the plan itself, or the fact that he clearly thought baggage handlers would just toss him into the cargo hold like a sack of golf clubs. 47. Someone tried to sneak 200 pounds of meat across a border by disguising it as a backseat passenger. They dressed the pile of pork in a hoodie, a baseball cap, and even sunglasses. Officers pulled them over when they noticed the passenger wasn't blinking. Imagine being that desperate to save on groceries that you build a meat scarecrow and think Border Patrol will tip their hats and wave you through. Honestly, I hope they at least buckled it in. 48. A woman was caught trying to smuggle 20 live snakes in her bra. Not baby snakes, big ones, stuffed in fabric cups like Victoria's Secret had gone full National Geographic. Security noticed when her chest started shifting like it had its own nervous system. She swore they were pets, which is probably true, but that doesn't make it less horrifying. Somewhere out there is a TSA agent who will never trust lingerie again. 49. A man attempted to smuggle drugs by baking them into fake carrots. He carved out orange plastic tubes, stuffed them with powder, and bundled them with real vegetables. Security flagged the bag because the carrots looked like they'd been designed by Fisher-Price. When cut open, they found neatly packed lines of narcotics. Basically, Bugs Bunny's nightmare stash. Honestly, if you're going to disguise drugs as food, at least pick something believable. Nobody travels with 20 pounds of perfectly uniform neon orange carrots unless they're planning a cult salad. 50. In one of the most insane cases, a guy tried to smuggle himself across a border by clinging to the underside of a bus. For hundreds of miles, he just held on like the world's least effective Spider-Man, until officers pulled the bus over and found him hanging on like laundry flapping in the wind. He claimed he was just tired of walking. Look, I get it. We've all had bad commutes, but most of us settle for Uber, not human fly cosplay. 51. And finally, the undisputed champion of dumb smuggling, someone tried to sneak drugs through an airport by hiding them in a hollowed-out wheelchair. The only problem? They weren't actually disabled. Security noticed when the guy accidentally stood up, stretched his legs, and started walking while waiting in line. Nothing screams busted, like standing up out of your own smuggling device. That's it. That's the mic drop. If you ever wondered how dumb human ingenuity can get, it's this: inventing a genius plan, then personally walking away from it. And there you have it. Proof that human evolution is less survival of the fittest and more customs officers auditioning for stand-up comedy. Which one deserves the crown for dumbest smuggler alive? Drop your vote or your own ridiculous story in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe, and buckle up because trust me, the next batch of stupidity is already boarding.